They're playing some of their best basketball right now, winners of 5 in a row, getting ready for the postseason. And Cori, head coach of UCLA women's basketball, joining us on the Bruin Insider Show. For Nick Cope, I'm Brian Fenley. Coach, I know this is a very busy time for you, so we're excited to chat with you and see how things are going.
We're really excited. You know, obviously an amazing time of year. I'm driving in to work this morning thinking there's just so few people get to experience this at this level and with this kind of team. And so just really grateful for the adventures that are about to happen.
That they are. And speaking of adventures, you look at what's in front of you, and given the way you're playing right now, how does that set you up for some good things in the postseason?
Well, I think we're built on the right things. You know, we're not playing perfectly. There's still some really specific things that we need to clean up. We need to execute better in the half court. We got to take care of the ball, which we were in the 95th percentile all year long in terms of our turnover percentage on possessions, and we've just taken a little dip, but I think that's something we can really fix. But in terms of defense, rebounding, passion plays, we're really playing our most connected, engaged basketball in terms of the scouting report, taking away what the other teams do best. And that's something you can control night in and night out. So I think I'm really excited for how that sets us up. If we can clean up some of the offensive things, sets us up for a deep run.
And those are the things you need to help carry you round to round and game to game. That adversity that you guys hit there in the middle part of conference play, you guys have obviously emerged from that a bit. You've won 5 in a row. How do you think that adversity helped this team grow?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You know, not only the thing that hasn't been talked about as much is we had 5 kids that were really sick in the entire month of January. And on top of when we were losing, we lost Lauren for those games and some other, you know, sort of injury kind of things. But the reality is that, you know, to steal, you know, a line from Tony Bennett from Virginia when they lost in the tournament, he says, you know, if handled well, adversity can buy you a ticket to a place you wouldn't have been able to go otherwise. And I think there really is some truth to that. I think some of the things that it forced our guards to start to do in Lauren's absence, I think now they're adding that to the mix where maybe they wouldn't have had the urgency to discover some of those things. On top of that, I think there's some connectivity in our chemistry that just went to another level and a depth. And I think a connected team is a more committed team. And, you know, so I just think there's some things that we had to grab onto during that time. You know, and we had to grow in some areas. Some other players got some really dependent upon minutes that maybe they didn't have up to that point. So all those things, I think, if we're willing to channel those in the right direction, if we're willing to handle that adversity wisely, I'm hoping it can buy us a ticket to maybe a place we wouldn't have gone otherwise.
We look forward to seeing that happen. Cori Close joining us on the Bruin Insider Show, UCLA women's head basketball coach. Want to talk to you in a moment about one of the players who you've been depending a lot on in London Jones and what she's been doing from the three-point line. But I want to ask you this because you brought up Tony Bennett. How many different quotes from coaches are easily recallable for you that just out of nowhere in random conversation that you can bring up and talk about?
I don't know. I bet Tony Noonan, we always say he's the steel trap brain that never forgets anything. So he might have more than I do. But, you know, this has been my craft, right? For 31 years, I've been being a Division I basketball coach. And so, you know, I think I've had the incredible privilege, you know, the one I quote the most is of course, our own John Wooden. But I think that I've had amazing people that have been role models for me. And, you know, and one of the things Coach Wooden taught me, though, is that the best role models are maybe the ones that you wouldn't recognize their names. It might be a junior high coach that I got to meet. It might be a high school practice that I got to see when I was recruiting a player. And, you know, a lot of those people that are really, really good teachers of the game, you don't know about them because they don't have as much exposure or a certain title. But sometimes those are the best mentor.
You talk about defense and rebounding, but sometimes you need someone to get hot, too.
Yes, helps a lot. So,
what changes now in tournament setting?
Yeah. Well, I think you don't get rewarded as much in transition. You know, people don't you're not going to get steal score at the same level. The average team in the NCAA tournament, you know, if you go down about 11 points a game, and if you're an up and down team and you're averaging in the 80s, you're going to be probably in the lower 70s in the NCAA tournament. You look at it, men's and women's, they're just, it's gritty. You have to grind it out. You got to be able to get stops on a consistent basis. You got to control the rebounds, and you got to take care of the basketball. basketball. So I think when we go into that, it's really being able, like, who's the toughest team the last 8 seconds of the shot clock? You know, who can take advantage of blobs and slobs or special situations or 2-for-1 opportunities at the end of quarters, which I don't know when the men are going to come alongside that, but they are missing out. It is so much more fun to play with all the quarters. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet, but I just think that there's all those little inches, you know, and that's another thing that we learned from some painful losses is, especially Oregon State and Utah, we made some critical errors in special situations, which we work on every single day, that cost us those 2 games. But the good news of that, you know, we would have been tied for Pac-12 champions if we had gotten that those 2 games, you know. But the flip side of that coin is that I think it taught us a painful lesson that, like, when we've been doing our work in those inches that we're trying to fight for, there's a heightened sense of how important they are because of what we've gone through. And I think those are the inches that determine postseason games. It's just the margin of error is that small.
Commercials, Brian. That's why the men's team hasn't done quarters yet.
I don't know. There's a lot of commercials on our side too. So
that is true, and there will be a lot of commercials playing when you guys are playing on Thursday coming up after a first round bye. The Bruins do have a first round bye in the Pac-12 tournament, and then you are going to either play Arizona State or Utah.
Right.
We wrap things up here with Cori Close on the Bruin Insider Show, UCLA head women's basketball coach for Nick Hope. I'm Brian Fenley. Cori, thanks so much. This was so fun.
Well, it's great to be with you guys. Just appreciate all you've done for so many sports here at UCLA. Thank you for all the fans tuning in. We represent you. Go Bruins.
Amen.